Hello everyone, how are you today? This is Teacher Rado, and in today's lesson, I'm going to take you to travel. In the first part, we're going to follow Mr. Phileas Fogg on his trip around the world in 80 days. We'll review a little bit of world geography, and then we'll practice pronunciation. In the second part, I'm going to help you plan your own trip, including the destination, the season, transportation and accommodation, but also the type of activities that you'd like to do. And at the end, we're going to write a postcard. Why don't you send a nice greeting back home and tell your family or friends about your fantastic vacation? Does it sound interesting? Okay, so get seated because we're starting right now. In this section, we're going to practice world geography and pronunciation.
London, 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 London.
Okay, everyone, now let's take a closer look at this trip around the world in 80 days. As you know, Phileas Fogg with his servant Passepartout started their journey in 1871. That's exactly 150 years ago. As you can see in this old calendar, the trip begins at the Reform Club, 改革俱乐部, in London. Here is an old map of London, and this is where the Reform Club is. Here you can see the old building of the club, with its interior that looks like a palace, and the reading room with the library. Now, let's practice pronunciation of the major stops on their journey.
Turin, 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 Turin. Brindisi, 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 Brindisi. Suez Canal, Suez Canal, Suez Canal, Suez Canal, Suez Canal, Suez Canal. Aden, 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 Aden.
Alright, now let's get back to our trip. From London, they get to France, to Paris, and from then on they continue by train to Italy. First to Turin, and then to the south of Italy, to the place called Brindisi. Now Fogg takes the Mongolia, a steamer, Lunchuan. They travel across the Mediterranean, Tijunhai, to arrive at Port Said in Egypt, and then to Suez. When they arrive in Suez, an English detective, Mr. Figgs, is waiting. He's looking for the gentleman thief. From there, they travel through the Suez Canal, stopping at Aden to take on coal, Chumei, and then continue their journey through Arabian Sea all the way to the city called Bombay in India. Now, let's practice some more pronunciation.
Bombay, 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 Bombay.
Uh-oh, look here. Google doesn't know the answer. Let's use the rules of English pronunciation to read it anyway. Okay? Let's go. Colby, Colby, Colby.
Allahabad, 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 Allahabad.
Now this is interesting because the current spelling and the pronunciation of the city is slightly different from from the past.
Calcutta, 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 Calcutta.
Okay, now let's get back to see Mr. Fogg. Now, Phileas Fogg finds out that the Trans-Indian Railroad is not yet completed. So between Colby and Allahabad, they have to ride an elephant through the jungle. Here, he and Passepartout rescue a young Indian woman named Aouda from a ritual called sati, which in Chinese is 亲自驯妇自焚. They take Aouda with them on the journey. They get to Allahabad in time to catch the train for Kolkata. Here is an old train from that era, and here is a famous temple in Kolkata, and this is a street view from the city. Now from Kolkata, they travel again by the steamer Rangoon, bound for Hong Kong. However, it stops in Singapore to take on some more coal, Shumei, and then continue to Hong Kong. Fogg was supposed to catch the steamer Carnatic to Yokohama, but the ship left early, and Passepartout got drunk with Fix, so he didn't tell Fogg about the change. Fogg then hires a small ship to Shanghai in China, where he boards the steamer to Yokohama. Well, Fogg arrives in Yokohama and finds Passepartout there. They board the steamer General Grant together for the Trans-Pacific trip to San Francisco. The trip takes them 20 days. Now, let's practice some more pronunciation. There are 12 more place names: Singapore, Hong Kong, Yokohama, San Francisco, Fort Kearny, and Omaha, Chicago, New York, Bordeaux, Queenstown, Dublin, and Liverpool.
Singapore, 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 Singapore. Hong Kong, Hong Kong, Hong Kong, Hong Kong, Hong Kong, Hong Kong. Yokohama, 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 Yokohama.
Now, repeat after me. San Francisco, San Francisco, San Francisco, San Francisco.
Fort Kearny, Fort Kearny, Fort Kearny, Fort Kearny, Fort Kearny, Fort Kearny. Omaha, 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 Omaha. Chicago, 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 Chicago.
All right, now let's practice the pronunciation of New York. Everyone, New York, New York, New York, New York.
Queenstown, 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 Queenstown. Bordeaux, 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 Bordeaux. Dublin, 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 Dublin. Liverpool, 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 Liverpool.
All right, now let's follow Mr. Fogg on the last two legs of his journey. Fogg's Passepartout, Aouda, and Fix, they plan to travel the United States by rail. However, in Medicine Bow, the bridge over the river was damaged by a storm. The engineer decides to cross the bridge very fast. The bridge falls into the river behind them. Then the train continues to Fort Kearny, where they are attacked by Sioux Indians, Sioux Indianer. At Fort Kearny, soldiers chase the Sioux Indians away, but Passepartout is kidnapped. 被绑架. Fox finds him, but they miss the train. So they have to travel to Omaha by sled with sails. 它有风放的雪橇. Then they take train to Chicago and all the way to New York. Phileas Fogg arrives in New York late and just misses the sailing of the ship China, which would take him across the Atlantic to Liverpool. However, he convinces the captain of a small ship, the Henrietta, to take them on board. While the Henrietta was going to Bordeaux, France, Fogg gives the sailors money to change the course for Liverpool. They also lock the captain in his room. However, the ship runs into bad weather and runs out of coal. So Fogg buys the whole ship from the captain and burns all the wood on the ship as fuel. But it is only enough to get them to Queenstown in Ireland. There, Fogg catches an express train from Queenstown to Dublin in Ireland, and then a fast boat to Liverpool. There he is finally arrested by Detective Fix, since they arrived on English soil. 他们终于到达英国本土. Now Fogg is, however, later found innocent, so he is released and he can go home. Then he catches a fast train to London. When they arrived in London, it is 10 to 9 in the evening, so it seems that Phileas Fogg had lost the bet. Luckily, they forgot about one important fact. When you travel around the globe eastward, or counterclockwise, 逆时针, and you cross the international date line, 国际日期变更线, you gain 1 day. Therefore, Fogg actually still had 1 more day to arrive at the Reform Club. Eventually, Fogg won the bet and earned £20,000. Now in the second part, we're gonna plan your own trip around the world. Okay, so now let's go and plan our own trip around the world. So first of all, we need to choose our destination. Of course, we're starting from Taiwan, right? But unfortunately, Taiwan isn't here in this map, but we all know that it's somewhere here, right? So where do you want to go first? Do you want to travel to Asia? To Europe, North America. For some of you who are more adventurous, South America is a great option, or even Africa. And of course, we shouldn't miss Australia and New Zealand. Now, I have one interesting question. Would you be able to name the landmarks and activities that we can do in various countries? For example, Japan. This is a pagoda building that is typical for Japan. One of the symbols of China is dragon and the Great Wall of China in the north of the country. When we go to the far east of Russia, there is a big brown bear because this is a place where there is a lot of wildlife. So for people who love to spend their time in nature, this is a great place to go. Alright, what about India? There is this guy who is meditating here because for India, the birthplace of Buddhism, meditation is a very frequent activity. Many people who are very busy in their lives and are overworked and stressed, they like to go to places like India to practice meditation and for spiritual retreats. And then they recharge their internal energy. They go back home. They feel much invigorated and refreshed. Now, what is this monument? Well, this is the most famous landmark in India called the Taj Mahal in the city called Agra. What about these mountains? What are they called? They are the Himalayas, the tallest mountain range in the world. Alright, when we move further to Europe, we can see this guy dressed in red dancing the traditional Russian dance called Kazachok. Okay, and behind him, this is the famous church in the center of Moscow called St. Basil's Cathedral. Now, when we move to Europe, one of the oldest landmarks or monuments in Europe is the Acropolis in the city called the Athens, the capital of Greece. Well, everybody knows the Eiffel Tower in Paris and Big Ben in London. When we take a look at the north of Europe, there are windmills that are very typical for the Netherlands. And in Scandinavia, we can see forests and snow-covered houses. In Iceland, this is a Protestant church in Reykjavik, but I would say the more typical for Iceland are the geysers. Well, there's a whale swimming in the sea, and in this place called Greenland, we can see igloos and a lot of polar bears. Now, when we move to the American continent, first we probably start in New York with its many skyscrapers. This might be the Empire State Building. Americans love sports, so these are symbols of sports like American football and baseball. Americans also love to drive big trucks. And this is the famous Route 66, an icon in American popular culture. A lot of people take this road trip looking for freedom and adventure. Driving down the highway, going on for miles and miles, singing along to a song on the radio, and enjoying the landscape. Remember, it's about a journey, not the destination. Well, in North America, we can still see some native Indians. This is a tent called a teepee that native Indians used to live in. Well, in North America, it is usually very cold, so it's a great place to go skiing, especially with all those mountains. Okay, what is this symbol? This stands for Hollywood, which is one of the centers, or the center of world movie production. Okay, if we move down to Mexico, you can see the cacti that grow in the deserts of northern Mexico. And this is a sombrero, a typical Mexican hat. Well, when we move still further down to the south, we can see Mayan Pyramids that have been proclaimed one of the new 7 wonders of the world. If you take a look here, this is the longest mountain range in South America, and I believe in the whole world. It's called the Andes. One of the typical animals in the Andes is llama. When we take a detour to Brazil, there is this statue of Jesus in Rio de Janeiro. It's one of the landmarks of Rio. And also football or soccer, because Brazilians love to play soccer. South of Brazil, there is Argentina. And one of Argentina's symbols is Argentinian tango. People love dancing tango. If we take a liner, or in ancient times a steamer, and take a trip to Africa, we can see a lot of interesting things there. For example, Table Mountain in South Africa. We can see native Africans living in their typical huts. And we can see a lot of wildlife like zebras and native African birds like this toucan. We can see giraffes, a lot of baobab trees. And in the north of Africa, in a country called Egypt, there are many famous pyramids. Okay, so if we travel through the Indian Ocean all the way to Australia, there we can see typical Australian animals that don't live anywhere else in the world, like kangaroo. But we can also see some landmarks like the Opera House, the Sydney Opera House. One typical weapon that native Australian Aborigines use is called boomerang. And that's about it. That's our short trip around the world with teacher Rado. Now, when planning a trip, it's important to choose the best season. When do you want to go? When do you have time? Each season has its pros and cons. In spring, the nature wakes up, so there are many flowers and trees are in blossom. It's usually quite cool, not too hot, not cold either. Many Taiwanese like to go to Japan to see cherry blossom, the sakura. Well, during this season, there are fewer travelers around, so the accommodation is usually cheaper than in summer. Now, what about summer? Everybody loves summer, right? In the northern hemispheres, the summers are usually hot and the daytime is very long, so you can do a lot of things outside. It is a convenient time for traveling if you don't mind the heat. On the other hand, there are many people everywhere. Children are on vacation and they love to travel with their parents. Accommodation is more expensive. Services are in high demand. You will have to line up and plan things in advance. Autumn, or fall in American English, is my favorite season. It's not so hot anymore, but rather nice and cool. For example, in my hometown in Slovakia. In fall, you can see all kinds of colors in the mountains. Tree leaves turning yellow, red, and brown. It makes for fantastic photos. I simply love fall. Accommodation won't be so expensive, and there'll be fewer people outside. Now, how about winter? Some people swear by winter, especially all the Christmas lovers or winter sport fans. If you travel to Europe in winter, you have to visit a Christmas market or two. They are now in every city. Enjoy the fantastic atmosphere, great food and drinks, and buy local souvenirs. In winter, people love skiing in the mountains. It's one of my favorite sports. Skiing and sunbathing at snow-covered mountains is an amazing experience. So, where would you like to go? To a big city? To the countryside? To the mountains? For a cruise or to a resort? Or on an adventure? Do you want to visit a big city? That's the place you're used to. If you like culture, landmarks, museums and galleries, great restaurants, afternoon coffee or bustling nightlife, this is a great option for you. You can join a city tour and learn many interesting things about a city. Be prepared for the crowds though. Also, the people in big cities are usually not so friendly because they see many tourists every day. What about the countryside? Traveling in the countryside may be less comfortable, but definitely more leisurely. You can enjoy simple life, get in touch with nature and the local people, and enjoy their hospitality, but you may need to rent a car and even live without the internet. Also, accommodation will be very local. Small guest houses or homestays can make for an authentic experience. Are you ready for that? People who love nature may prefer a trip to the mountains. You know what is waiting for you. Getting up early in the morning and climbing up a mountain or two with your backpack, no matter if it's sunny or rainy. Eating simply and sleeping in a mountain chalet, 山间小屋, or a B&B. Enjoying the sunrise and sunset, and taking a lot of beautiful photos. Spending a few days hiking will get your body in perfect shape, and, as a scientific fact, you will also feel much happier. Now, how about a cruise? From parents to teens, from grandparents to grandkids, cruises are fun for all ages. They are easy to plan and can be very exotic too. Moreover, cruise ships are designed to keep everybody happy. Pamper yourself at the spa, while your hubby hits the casino. Lounge in the sun reading a book, while your family plays basketball. Go wine tasting, take a dance workshop, paint pottery, learn a language or do yoga. Dine at a casual buffet, a fancy restaurant, a sushi bar or a steakhouse. And watch a movie or live music performance. And if all you want to do is nothing while the ship sails to the next port, you can do that too. Some people like to take it really easy, so they choose a holiday resort, an all-inclusive hotel complex. It's similar to a cruise, but here, The hotel doesn't move anywhere. Nothing can beat a convenience. Everything you need is there for you all around the clock. Leave all your belongings in your hotel room, including your wallet, and only walk around with a bracelet. Sunbathe in the best swimming pools or enjoy the spa. Eat foods from all over the world and explore all the activities your resort offers. Take the best snapshots. Endless palm trees, blue water, white sand, breakfast in bed, and incredible views. Beware though that some resorts can be very expensive, especially in exotic locations. There are people who don't want to stay in one place, but love action-packed holidays. They choose an adventure, for example, go camping or take a hot air balloon trip, go scuba diving or go on a safari, or take a road trip. This could be a family vacation or a trip for a couple. Rent a bike, a car, or a camper van and drive freely down the highway or a country road. Stop where you want to take pictures, to get a cup of coffee or dinner. Throw out a daily planner and forget about a time. In this type of holiday, you are in charge. Depending on how much time you've got, plan your holiday for a weekend, a week or two, or even a month. Make sure to do your homework and make a budget though. How are you going to spend your hard-earned money? Plan everything in advance. The transportation, accommodation, food, tours and other activities, and gifts. And don't forget to put something aside, just in case. Prepare your budget well and keep to it, so that you can enjoy a carefree vacation. Next step is planning your accommodation. Well, this largely depends on the type of your vacation. If you choose a cruise or a resort, you don't need to worry about that. But if you choose another type of vacation, you may need to book the room in advance. How well you sleep will decide your mood, so plan it carefully. I always choose my accommodation on Booking.com. It can actually be very exciting. Planning the type of transportation also depends on the type of your vacation. You could take a train or a high-speed train, a boat, a balloon, a plane, or a bus. You can drive a car or ride a horse, camel, or a bike. Or you can simply walk. The next step is to plan the activities you are going to do on your vacation. You know what you like, so depending on who you are going with, you can do all sorts of things, like, for example, visit museums, go sightseeing, go to hot springs, go hiking, try bungee jumping, visit a monument or two, attend a concert or a music festival, go for a cruise, learn arts and crafts, meditate and relax, take a lot of pictures, try local food, go shopping, learn a new skill, watch a sport game, or go to the market. And many, many more. Before you hit the road, there is one more thing you need to prepare: a packing list. You can find them on the internet, so here is just a sample. Make sure you pack your luggage well in advance, and don't leave it for the last minute like me. Finally, let's get to the last activity in today's lesson: writing a postcard from vacation. Even in the era of Line, Instagram and Facebook, a handwritten postcard has its special charm. So don't hesitate. Pick the most beautiful postcard and write to your family or friends about your trip. Are you having a good time? What places have you seen? Have you met anyone interesting? How is the food, the accommodation, and the weather? Let's take a look at a sample postcard Detective Fix sent to his wife. Maybe you get some inspiration there. Dear Mabel, here we are in Paris. On the front of this postcard, you can see a picture of Notre Dame. I like French onion soup. French wine is very good too. We're leaving tonight for Italy by train. Perhaps I can write again from Italy. Love, Fix. Dear Mabel, here we are in Italy. On the front of this postcard, you can see a picture of the Colosseum. I like Italian spaghetti. Italian wine is very good too. We're leaving tonight for Suez by ship. Perhaps I can write again from Egypt. Love, Fix. Okay, so now go ahead and write your own postcard from your next vacation. Free your mind and show off your English in front of your friends. I'm sure they will be happily surprised when they get it.